එහෙම කියනවා. Good morning to all of you. Today we will move to the another topic. This is also one of the very famous topic coming under the accounting information system. This topic called computer fraud, because accounting students who study accounting information system, you should have a knowledge about the computer frauds, because the accountants also involving with computer frauds and other people also involving with the computer frauds, and most of the time whole accounting system is computerized today. Then the frauds are inhabited. We should want to know the areas of the frauds especially. Accounting information systems grow more complex to meet our escalating needs for information. Companies face the growing risk that their system may be compromised. Recent surveys shows that 67% of the companies had a security breach, that means some kind of a frauds. Over 45% were targeted by organized crime, and 60% reported financial losses. Due to this computer frauds, financial losses are getting higher the number. Now, there are some threats in accounting information system. Some threats. What are the threats accounting information system face? Natural and political disasters is a number one threat. What is natural and political disasters? Such as fires, floods, earthquakes. Now say this pandemic today, the COVID-19 also the natural. Hurricanes, tornadoes, some war, political war, cool war, whatever is the Afghanistan war, and attacks by terrorists. They are very famous about the September 11 story. Can destroy an information system and cause many companies to fail. You remember that terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center in New York and on the federal building in Oklahoma City destroyed or disrupted all the systems in those buildings. A flood in Chicago destroyed or damaged 400 data processing centers. You know, these are the natural and political disasters, even terrorists coming under the political disasters. A very valid concern for everyone is what is going to happen when a cyber attacks are militarized. That is the terrorism or a transition from disruptive to destructive attacks. This is the highest but uncontrollable sometimes such a things. Now, how are you going to control such a things? We will talk about little later, right? Second one, software errors and equipment malfunction. That is also another threat to AIS. Software errors, operating system crashes, hardware failures, power outages and fluctuations, and undetected data transmission errors constitute a second type of threat. A federal study estimated yearly economic losses due to software bugs at almost $60 billion. More than 60% of companies studied had significant software errors. That's also you can understand clearly one of the very important threats to the AIS. Another one. Third, unintentional acts. A third type of threat, unintentional acts such as accidents or innocent errors and omissions is the greatest risk to information system and cause the greatest dollar losses. The Computing Technology Industry Association estimates that human errors cause 80% of security problems. You can see. Some research estimates that employees unintentionally create, innocent sometimes, create legal, regulatory, or financial risk in 25% of their outbound emails. See, the email also can make loss or threats to the AIS system. Unintentional acts are caused by human carelessness, failure to follow established procedures, and poorly trained or supervised personnel, users lost or misplaced data and accidentally erase or alter files, data and programs. Computer operators and users enter the wrong input or erroneous input, use the wrong version of a program or the wrong data files or a misplaced data files. System analysis develops systems that do not meet company needs, that have them vulnerable to attack, or that are incapable of handling their intended tasks. Programmers make logic errors. You can see the lot examples everywhere today. The fourth threat to the AIS. Fourth threat is an intentional, earlier unintentional, now intentional act, such as a computer crime, a fraud, a sabotage, which is deliberate destruction or a harm to a system. Information systems are increasingly vulnerable to attacks. There are some examples. In a 3-year period, the number of networks that were compromised was 700%. Experts believe the actual numbers of incidents is 6 times higher than the reported, because companies tend not to report security breaches. Systematic estimates that hackers attacks computers more than 8.6 million times per day. One computer security company reported that in course they handled that were perpetrated by Chinese hackers. 95% of the targeted companies did not realize that their system had been compromised until someone else told them. Now you can see even your data, wherever your email accounts, Gmail accounts, Facebook, Twitter, whatever the place, people can hack. Because you open your profile to the globally, anyone else can hack. Then don't believe everything in FB, Twitter, your Gmail, everything 100% true. 100% true, because those are always vulnerable and under attack, because it's all connected to the globally. Now, it's very important to understand such a thing. The fraud, that's our topic today. How are you going to define the fraud? Fraud is a gaining an unfair advantage over another person. Legally, for an act to be fraudulent, there must be, number one, a false statement, representation, or a disclose. Number two, a material fact, which is something that induces a person to act. Number three, an intended to deceive. Number four, a justifiable reliance, that is, the person relies on the misinterpretation, misrepresentation to take an action. 5, an injury or a loss suffered by the victim. You can see, fraudulent comes like this. The fraud is a gaining an unfair advantage over another person. Even you are in a queue, properly one by one, the late person is a late. He's supposed to be in the last in the queue, but he came in the first and get the service and gone. That is also fraud. Fraud is a gaining an unfair advantage over another person. Annual economic losses resulting from fraudulent activity each year are struggling. It is rare for a week to go by without the national or local press reporting another fraud of some kind. These frauds range from a multi-million-dollar fraud that captures the attention of the nation to an employee defrauding a local company out of a small sum of money. Most of the fraud operators, the person who prepare the frauds, the most of the fraud perpetrators, perpetration means a man or a person who try to do the fraud. Most fraud perpetrators are knowledgeable insiders within the requisite access, skills and resources. It's a knowledgeable person. It's always inside the person, because this term can't enter to the outside people, very rare, other than the strong hacker. Because employees understand the company's system and its weaknesses. they are better able to commit or concern a fraud or conceal a fraud. The control used to protect corporate assets make it more difficult for an outsider to steal from a company. Outsiders very rarely come and fraud because you have a good internal control system. But be careful, in the number one, when the frauds happen, people who are inside. Fraud perpetrators are often referred to as white-collar criminals. White-collar criminals. There are great many different types of frauds. There are great many different type of frauds. We briefly define and give example of some of those and then provide a more extended discussion of some of the most important ones to businesses. What is this then? Corruption. The categories of frauds. The corruption is dishonest conduct by those in power. Now, remember, the fraud is one definition, corruption have another definition. Dishonest conduct by those in power. And it often involves actions that are legitimate, illegitimate, immoral, or incompatible with ethical standards. There are many types of corruption. Examples include bribery and bid rigging. Investment frauds is a misrepresenting or leaving out facts in order to promote an investment that promises fantastic profits with little or no risk. There are many types of investment frauds. Two types of frauds are the most important to the businesses are misappropriation of assets. Now here you can see in the slideshow. Sometimes called employee fraud. Employee fraud. And fraudulent financial reporting. Fraudulent financial reporting. Sometimes called management fraud. These two types of frauds are very, very important to study in lengthy manner. We'll start from the number one, misappropriation of assets. Misappropriation of assets is the theft of company assets by employees. Theft of company assets by employees. Examples including Milano, a manager at a Reader's Digest, responsible for processing bills around $1 million over a 5-year period. He forged a superior signature on invoice for a service never performed, submitted them to accounts payable, forged the endorsements on the check and deposited it in his account. Villano used the stolen funds to buy an expensive home, 5 cars and a boat. Another example. A bank vice president approved 1 billion in bad loans, bad loans, in exchange for $585,000 in kickbacks. Kickbacks mean they are getting some money underhand. The loan cost the bank 800 million and helped trigger its collapse. A manager at Florida newspaper went to work for a competitor after he was fired. The first employer soon realized its reporters were being spoofed. An investigation revealed that manager still had an active account and password and regularly borrowed its computer files for information on exclusive stories. You can see massively you can find out misappropriation of assets including money, vehicles, properties, current and non-current assets. The most significant contributing factor, the most misappropriation is the absence of internal controls. I always emphasize to you. And the failure to enforce existing internal controls. A typical misappropriation has the following important elements or characteristics. The perpetrator, person who preparing to do the fraud, ready to do the fraud, gains the trust or confidence of the entire entity being defrauded. That is the condition. Always he try to gain the trust or a confidence from others. Use trickery, cunning, or a false or a misleading information to commit fraud. Conceals the fraud by falsifying records or other information. Rarely transmits the fraud voluntarily. Sees how easy it is to get extra money. Need or a greed impulse the person to continue. Some frauds are self-perpetrating. If perpetrators stop, their actions are discovered. Spend the ill-gotten gains. Rarely does the perpetrator save or invest the money. That is the nature of the perpetrators. Some perpetrators come to depend on the extra income, and others adopt a lifestyle that requires even the greater amounts of money. For these reasons, there are no small funds, only large ones that are detected earlier. You have to watch behavior of the people. The person in your organization too much try to gain the confidence and trust, be careful. Some spend more than the earlier. Everything they buy, spend, be careful. And make a doubt of that person, but don't tell. And watch how this person suddenly be rich. Gets greedy and takes ever larger amounts of money at intervals that are more frequent. exposing the perpetrator to greater scrutiny and increasing the chances the fraud is discovered. Gross careless or overconfidence as time passes. If the size of the fraud does not lead to its discovery, the perpetrator eventually makes a mistake that does lead to the discovery. Always there is a mistake. Wait and see. You can catch the fellow. The second one, fraudulent financial reporting, very important for accountants like you. The National Commission on Fraudulent Financial Reporting, we call the Treadway Commission, defined fraudulent financial reporting as intentional or reckless conduct, whether by act or omission, that results in materially misleading financial statements. Management falsifies financial statements to deceive investors and creditors, increase a company's stock price, meets cash flow needs, or hide companies' losses and problems. Throughout the years, many highly published financial statement frauds have occurred. In each case, misrepresented financial statements led to a huge financial losses and a number of bankruptcies. The most frequent, cook the books. Cook the books means you change the figures. You change the figures of the financial statement. Cook the books. Schemes involve fictitiously inflating revenues. Not really. Fake increases the revenue. Holding the books open, recognize revenues before they are occurred. Closing the books early, delaying current expenses to later period. Overstating inventories, you increase the inventory value, or fixed assets, and concealing losses and liabilities, concealing, hiding. The Treadway Commission recommended 4 actions to reduce fraudulent financial reporting. Fraudulent financial reporting. Number 1. Establishing an organizational environment that contributes to the integrity of the financial reporting process. Number 2. Identify and understand the factors that lead to a fraudulent financial reporting. Number 3. Assess the risks of fraudulent financial reporting within the company. Number 4. Design and implementing internal control system to provide responsible assurances of preventing fraudulent financial reporting. Those things are very important to overcome these issues. You know, in international auditing standards, 99 essays number 99, the auditor's responsibility to detect fraud. It refers like this: detect frauds. Statement standards, SAS number 99, consideration of fraud in financial statements audit become effective in December 2002. SAS, Statement of Auditing Standards number 99, requires auditors to, number one, understand fraud, because the auditors cannot effectively audit sometime or something they do not understand. They must understand fraud and how and why it is committed. Number two, discuss the risks of material fraudulent statement. While planning the audit, team members discuss among themselves how and where the company's financial statements are susceptible to fraud. Number three, obtain information. The audit team gathers evidence by looking for fraud risk factors, testing company records, and asking management, the audit committee of the board of directors, and others whether they know of past or a current fraud. Because many frauds involve revenue recognition, special care is exercised in examining revenue accounts. Identify access and report it to risk. The evidence is used to identify, assess, and respond to fraud risk by varying the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedures, and by evaluating carefully the risks of management overriding internal controls. Evaluating the results of their audit test, that is also one of the tasks the auditor want to do. Auditors must evaluate whether identified misstatements indicate the presence of fraud and determine its impact on financial statements and audit. Document and communicate findings. Auditors must document and communicate their findings to manage and the audit committee. Incorporate a technological focus. SAS number 99 recognize the impact technology has on fraud risk and provides commentary and examples reorganizing this impact. See, you can see how we try to control the frauds today. Who perpetrators fraud and why? The condition for fraud, according to the slide. Yeah. When researchers compared the psychological characteristic of white-collar criminals, violent criminals, and the public, they found significant differences between violent and white-collar criminals. Because most of the computer frauds done by the white-collar criminals. They found few difference between white-collar criminals and the public. There are conclusions. Many frauds perpetrators look just like you and me. Some fraud perpetrators are disgruntled and unhappy with their jobs and seek revenge against employers. Others are dedicated, hardworking, and trusted employees. Most have no previous criminal records. They were honest, valued, and respected numbers of their community. In other words, they were good people who did bad things. Computer fraud perpetrators are typically younger and possess more computer experience and skills. Some are motivated by curiosity, a quest for knowledge, the desire to learn how things work, and the challenge of beating the system. Some view their actions as a rather than is a dishonest behavior, that is a talent or the way they look at the world, especially young computerized people, computer knowledgeable people. Others commit computer fraud to gain status in the hacking community, to be a best among the hacking community. A large and growing number of computer frauds perpetrators are more predatory in nature and seek to turn their actions into money. These fraud perpetrators are more like the blue-collar criminals and look to prey on others by robbing them. The difference is that they use a computer instead of a gun. Many first-time fraud perpetrators that are not caught, or they are caught but not prosecuted, move from being unintentional fraudsters to serial fraudsters. Malicious software in a big business and huge profit engine for the criminal underground, especially for digitally savvy hackers in Eastern Europe. They break into financial accounts and steal money. They sell data to some people, organized crime, hackers, and the intelligence community. They market malware such as virus producing software to others. Some work with organized crime. A recent convicted hacker was paid $150 for every 1,000 computers he infected with his adware, and earn hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You can see. Now, the cyber criminals are the top FBI priority because they have moved from isolated and unconditional attacks to organized fraud schemes targeted at specific individuals and businesses. You can study here something new today that is called the fraud triangle. Here there are three in my slide, so you can see three factors. Anyway, I will explain one by one. For the most predator fraud perpetrators, all the fraudsters needs is an opportunity and criminal mindset that allows him or her to commit the fraud. For most first-time fraud perpetrators, three conditions are present when fraud occurs. A pressure, because somebody doing frauds because of the pressure. One factor. Condition for frauds, one factor. in fraud triangle. Why people are doing frauds? Because of a pressure. Second, an opportunity. Third, and a rationalization. You can see three here. Why people are doing frauds? Pressure, rationalization, and opportunity. This referred to as the fraud triangle, and it is the middle, right? It's a middle or a focus. First one, pressure. Person is a pressure is a person's incentive or a motivation for committing fraud. Three types of pressure that led to misappropriations of frauds or of misappropriation of assets. In the employees pressure triangle, you can see those three things. Pressure that can lead to employee fraud, the pressure you can see, financial, emotional, and lifestyle. The financial pressure often motivate misappropriation frauds by employees. For example, such a pressure include living beyond one's means, heavy financial losses, lot of debts, or a high personal debt. Often, the perpetrators feels the pressure cannot be shared and believes fraud is the best way out of a difficult situation. Financial. Living beyond one's means, high personal debt, inadequate salary, income, poor credit ratings, heavily financial losses, bad investment, tax avoidance. Those things led to a financial pressure. That's some examples, lot. A second type of pressure is emotion. Many employee frauds are motivated by greed. You and us having all this. Some employees turn to fraud because they have a strong feelings of resentment or believe they have been treated unfairly. Company not treated me unfair. They may feel their pay is too low. Their contributions are not appreciated, or the company is taking advantage of them. An accountant passed over, this is a very good example. California accountant passed over for raise, increase his salary by 10%. The amount of average raise. He defended his action by saying he was only taking what was rightful his. He has taken money and he said that the company doesn't increase my salary by 10%. This is what I own. I have gotten. That he back in a different way. When asked why he did not increase his salary by 11%, he responded that he would have been stealing 1%. You see, since the third one, the pressure comes. The three types of organized, third type of employee pressure is a person's lifestyle. The person may need funds to support or a gambling habit or support a drug or alcohol addiction. One young woman embarrassed Hmm? And she embezzled funds because her boyfriend threatened to leave her if she did not provide him money he needed to support his gambling and drug addictions. See, people different way. The people tended to do frauds. Young accounting students like you, please understand the pressure come from three ways. Three type of organizational pressures that motivate management to misrepresentation financial statements today. You can see in the triangle, a prevalent financial pressure is need to meet or exceed earnings expectation to keep a stock price from falling. Managers create significant pressure with unduly aggressive earnings, forecast, or unrealistic performance standards, or with incentive programs that motivate employees to falsify financial results to keep their jobs or to receive stocks option and other incentive payments. Opportunity, that is another one. Opportunity is the condition or a situation including one's personal abilities that allows a perpetrator to do three things. Number one, you can see in the slideshow, but I will explain in detail. Commit the fraud. Commit the fraud. The theft of assets is the most common type of misappropriation. Most instances of fraudulent financial reporting involves overstatements of assets or revenues, underestimate sometimes of liabilities, or a failure to disclose information. In accounting information, lack of disclosure very dangerous. Number two, conceal the fraud. To prevent detection when assets are stolen, or financial statements are overstated, perpetrators must keep the accounting equation in balance by inflating other assets or decreasing liabilities or equity. As accountant, we know how to do. Concealment often takes more effort and time and leaves behind more evidence than the theft or misrepresentations. Taking cash requires only a few seconds. Altering records to handle or to hide the thief is more challenging and time consuming. One way for an employee to hide the thief or company assets is to charge the stolen item to an expensive account. The perpetrator's expose is limited to a year or less. You can see very bad. Why people are doing, don't open the opportunities. When the opportunity is there, they tended to do the fraud. The third one is rationalize. My God, people rationalize frauds. A rationalization allows perpetrators to justify their illegal behavior. This can take the form of a justification. I only took what they owe me. That is always they say. Attitude. The rules do not apply to me. Or a lack of personal integrity. Getting what I want is more important than being honest. This is In other words, perpetrators rationalize that they are not being dishonest, that honestly is not required of them, or they value what they take more than honesty and integrity. Some perpetrators rationalize that they are not hunting or hurting a real person, but a faceless, a nameless computer system or an impersonal company that will not miss the money. One such a perpetrator stole no more than $20,000, the maximized loss the insurance company would reimburse. The most frequent rationalization words like this. Number one, I am only borrowing it and I will repay my loans. Number two, you would understand if you knew how badly I need it. Number three, what I did was not that serious. Then, it was for a good case. The Robin Hood syndrome. Robbing the rich to give the poor. Some people say like that. In my very important position of trust, I am above the rules. Everyone else is doing it. Yes. Everybody. You also say, everyone is doing it. That is what I sign. Fraud sign. On behalf of my friends, I sign. Everyone is doing that. No one will, but as accountant only. No one will over know or ever know. One will ever know. The company owns to me. I'm taking no more than is rightful mine. Fraud occurs when people have pressure, high pressure, no opportunity to commit, an opportunity to commit. Having opportunity, they tended to do that. Conceal and convert, an ability to rationalize away their personal integrity. Fraud is less likely to occur when people have few pressures, little opportunity, and high personal integrity. Usually all three elements of fraud triangle. Triangle, very essential to understand, must be present to some degree before a person commits frauds. Likewise, fraud can be prevented by eliminating or minimizing one or more fraud triangle elements. That's a good point you have to keep in your mind. Although companies can reduce or minimize some pressure and rationalization, their greatest opportunities to prevent fraud lies in reducing or minimizing opportunity by implementing a good system of internal controls. That's keep in your mind. This is fraud triangle. I already explained it. Computer fraud. Computer fraud is any fraud that requires computer technology to perpetrate it. Examples include unauthorized thief, use, access, modification, copying, or destruction of software, hardware, or data. Theft of assets covered by altering computer records. Obtaining information or tangible property illegally using computers. These are the computer frauds. Can really happen. You can see everywhere today computer frauds. The rise in computer frauds are so much everywhere today. Keep in your mind, it's a trend, rising. But there are a lot of controlling also for this cyber thing. Computer frauds, we can classify. Computer frauds classifications. The computer fraud can be categorized using data processing model. You know, data processing model, very famous. Input fraud, processors fraud, computer fraud, instruction frauds, right? Data fraud, output fraud. Likewise, we can categorize. I will go quicker one by one. That is prevention. Input fraud, the simplest and most common way to commit a computer fraud is to alter or falsify computer input. It requires little skill. Perpetrators need only understand how the system operates so they can cover their tracks. Example. One example, I can tell you many examples there. A man opened a bank account in New York and had blank bank deposit slips printed that were similar to those available in the bank lobbies, except his account number was encoded on them. He replaced the deposit slip in the bank lobby with his forged ones. For 3 days, bank depositor using the forged slip went into his account. The perpetrator withdrew the money and disappeared. He was never found. Very tactical people. Tactical people. Processor fraud. Processor fraud includes unauthorized system use, including the theft of computer time and services. Computer instruction frauds. Computer instruction frauds include tampering with company software, copying software illegally, using software in an unauthorized manner, and developing software to carry out an unauthorized activity. This approach used to be uncommon because it required specialized programming knowledge. It's more frequent because of the company or many web pages that tell users how to create them. Data fraud. Illegally using, copying, browsing, searching, and company data constitutes data frauds. The biggest cause of the data breaches is employee negligence. Companies now report that their losses are greater from the electronic theft of data than from stealing physical assets. See, data is how important. Output fraud. Unless properly safeguarded, displayed, or a printed output can be stolen, copied, or missed or misused. A Dutch engineer shown that company monitors emit television-like signals that, with the help of some inexpensive electronic gear that can be displayed on television screen. Under ideal condition, the signals can be picked up from monitors 2 miles away. One engineer set up equipment in the basements of an apartment building and read the monitor on the 8th floor. See how the monitor, the output is in the monitor, right? Only you can see the monitor, but someone else in the other places get that, see your monitor without knowing to you. Now this is very common. How we can preventing and detecting frauds? It's very important. To prevent fraud, organization must create a climate that makes fraud less likely or increase the difficulty of committing it. Improves detection methods and reduce the amount lost if a fraud occurs. You can see everybody try to detect and prevent and reduce or eliminate the frauds, but there should be a mechanism for that. Good internal control system is very, very essential. Very essential. Increase the difficulty of committing frauds, improving detection methods, reducing fraud losses. You have to be, you have to spend more time for that. More time for that. I will come one by one to explain to you this fraud detection and reducing part. First one, make fraud less likely to occur. For that, you can create an organizational culture that stressless integrity and commitment to ethical values and competencies. Number two, adopt an organizational structure, management philosophy, operating style, and risk, right? Minimize the likelihood of the fraud. Third, require oversight from an active, involved, and independent audit committee of the board of directors. Fourth one, assign authority and responsibility for business objectives to specific departments and individuals. 5. Identify the events that lead to increased fraud risk. 6. Develop a comprehensive set of security policies to guide the design and implementing specific control procedures. Next, implement human resource policies for hiring, compensating, evaluating, promoting, and all kind of HR functions. Next, develop a comprehensive set of anti-fraud policies. Next, effectively supervise employees, including monitoring their performances and contracting their errors. Next, provide employee support programs. Maintain open communication lines with employees. Create and implement a company code of conduct. Train employees in integrity and ethical considerations. Require annual employees vacation and sign confidentiality agreement. Implement formal and rigorous projects development. Increase the penalty for committing fraud by prosecuting fraud perpetrators more vigorously. Now you can see. Then next, slide show number 2. Make it difficult to commit. It's the hardest part. What you can do for that? Develop and implement strong system of internal controls. I always telling this. Segregating the accounting functions of authorization, recording and custody. Divide the work. Don't give a one work for one person longer period. Implement a proper segregation of duties between system functions. Restrict physical and remote access to system resources to authorized personnel. Require transaction and activities to be authorized by appropriate supervisory personnel. Use properly designed documents to capture and process transaction. Safeguard all assets, records and data. Require independent checks on performance. Implement computer-based controls over data input, computer processing, data storage, data transactions and information and whatever the output. Encrypt stored and transmission data and programs to protect them from unauthorized access and use. When disposing and use computers, destroy the hard drive to keep criminals from minimizing, recycle hard drives. Fix software vulnerabilities by installing operating system updates as well as security and application programs. Then preventing and detecting frauds. Improve detection. Improve detection methods. Under that, develop and implement fraud risk assessment program that evaluates both the likelihood and the magnitude of the fraudulent activity. Next, create an audit trail. Conduct periodic external internal audits. Install fraud detection software. Fraud detection software. Implement fraud hotlines. Motivate employees to report fraud by implementing whistleblower records or rewards. Whistleblower policy. That means if you have such a policy, the people or students can't post in Facebook unnecessary things and against the people or against the organization. Or any information there on the Facebook or Twitter, something against your organization, we can take the action. That is called whistleblower policy. Protections for those who come forward and giving some information, highly we protect them. Employ a computer security officer, computer consultants and forensic specialists are needed. Monitor system activities including computer and network security efforts. Then next, preventing and detecting frauds, reduce fraud losses. Maintain adequate insurance. Costly, but we have to do. Develop comprehensive fraud contingencies, disaster recovery and business continuity plans. In any situation your data is lost, you have a backups. Store backups copies of programs and data files in secure off-site location. Use software to monitor system activity and recover from fraud. Now we come to the conclusion for today's session. You learn very well about the fraud session today. That's very essential. You have to be very, very important things what you learn today. Because in everywhere, this kind of fraudulent activities are coming more and more. For that, you have to pay more attention to the why people are doing frauds. That fraud triangle is very important. Then type of frauds you learn. Then finally, how you're going to detect and preventing frauds also you have learned. Listen this slideshow several times, then you will get the real picture about the frauds. And in this session, this not for the exam, it's important for exam, and this is really, really important for your life. And working as accountant, wherever you work in future. Because accountants are involved with lot of frauds, finding situation or giving evidence and all documentation. We can't, it's a part and partial duty of the accountants today to investigate the frauds and detect and prevent and try to reduce or eliminate. Thank you for today's session. Thank you very much. Any questions if you have, you can email to me all kind of a question or send to me anything. This is the one of the very important topic. Here is summary slideshow. These are preventing and detecting fraud. There are 4 methods you have to use. Then computer frauds connected to the data processing cycle, input fraud, processing fraud, compute instruction fraud, data fraud, output frauds. And this is most important one. Why people are doing frauds? It's definitely connected to the fraud triangle. The fraud triangle also very important. And on the fraud triangle, 3 things are very important. Pressure, opportunity, and rationalize. If you can reduce those 3 in your organization, definitely you reduce frauds. Then you learn 2 categories of frauds, especially in accounting people: misappropriation of assets, fraudulent financial reporting. Then you learn fraud definition, then threats to accounting information system. Also you have learned, and our work is done. Thank you very much for listen and develop your skills, knowledge and everything. Good luck.